Hello, Renee. Hello, madam. Good evening. Can you hear me? Unmuted. It is unmuted, madam, from my side. Can you hear me? No? You speak? You speak? No, I'm not able to hear. Hello? Sorry, madam, I am not able to hear. Hello, Rini. Oh, okay. Hello, Rini. Oh, one second, one second, one second, one second. I'll call principal. Hello, sir. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, done now.
Done. Okay.
I've been able. I'm struggling to unmute myself because it says the host doesn't let you unmute.
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So all the technology drama is over. I hope now we can continue.
Yeah.
It's quite unnerving, when technology says things. Okay, I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, madam.
Again, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, madam. That's fine. No, that's fine. No problem. Only your sharing is required.
No,
Your sharing can be?
but no, that's what you're not letting me do it. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So every time I click screen share,
Okay, madam.
it's
Okay.
not letting me share the screen.
Sure. I'll get back to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Done?
Can you see the screen and hear me? Hello?
Yet to be seen, madam.
Yet to be seen. Okay.
Yeah.
For the first time, the screen has visible to me because generally it takes a longer time for me on this side. But I can get started as long as you can hear me. So good afternoon, everyone. And yeah, I really hope the technology glitches stops now and lets us proceed. So very happy to be back with all of you. And today's third session is on access to medicines. So just to let you know that this is an area that I accidentally entered in the year 1999, and I've never looked back because I was trained by the WHO in December 1999, and the two key people in the access to essential medicines in the WHO were there in that training program, other than the hosts of professors who had come from various countries, from USA all the way up to Australia, because that is the type of WHO training programs. The technical coordinators, which is what I became for this program in Karnataka, had to undergo. So it would be a 15 days program, and then each day would have between 6 to 8 sessions. Each session would be dealt by one of the experts on that particular subject from in any part of the world. It could be from the WHO offices, from the academics, NGOs, etc. So when you learn from the best, I think you only emulate that best consistently. So this has been my life about access to medicines since 1999. So I'm talking about one of my most favorite topics. And in terms of COVID, I think it becomes even more relevant to understand why do we need to talk about access to medicines. So what are our objectives? For me, one of the first objectives always is about being inspired. So just give me 1 second. Samai, volume low. Sorry. because this doesn't give me access to mute myself to give instructions. So one of the first things is identify the need for WHO's approach to access to medicine strategy. So we are starting from the global perspective. From the global perspective, how do we move down to the different perspectives at the national level? The second objective of today's session is to recognize the importance of the dedicated agility of programs towards access to essential medicine. So I'll talk to you about which are the different organizations, such as Access to Medicines Foundation, UAEM, MPP. I will tell you what these organizations are. And one of the reasons I talk to you about these organizations is, just to remind you once again, it is for you to start looking at career opportunities in these kind of organizations in specific areas. Once you get your clinical understanding, once you understand what needs to be done at a patient level, sometimes you may feel in order to grow, you have to start looking at a population level as to what you can be contributing. So these are the kind of jobs you should be looking for, or the kind of organizations you should be looking for when you get to that level in your career, in your intellectual capacity, and in your maturity levels in whatever area you choose to do. Once you have all of those, after 5 to 10 or maybe even 15 years of working, that is when these are the right organizations to target. So being aware of these organizations, following the web pages of these organizations, and keeping in touch by possibly volunteering for some of these organizations is a very important move in your career. So I really encourage the next generation to make use of these opportunities. So it not only enhances your professional responsibilities and understanding, it also enhances the way you contribute as a civic citizen, because that's one of the key things that somewhere down the line we lost track of. We have gone into this silo effect of how do we improve, how do we get on with our career, and how do we just keep focusing on that. Somewhere the civic responsibility, service learning, where your learning is of benefit to the society as well, etc., has started taking a backseat. So we need to bring it forward, at least during the COVID times. Because during COVID times, one of the philosophies we have to bear in mind is, I am because we are. Unless and until the surroundings around me is in a nice way, whatever I have as an individual will not only not be not nice, but it will also result in social chaos. That's the one thing that we have to watch out for. If our recession and our GDP and the shrinking of the economy, the way it's happening globally, that's one story. But the way it's happening in India is something we have to be absolutely aware of, and see how do we try and bring food to the table. This is not about just the job creation part of it, because next week when I talk to you more about the sustainable development goals, I will be touching upon some of these things. So one of the favorite infographics of mine is this one, where we put SDG 3, which is to do with the good health and well-being from the sustainable development goals, and the remaining 16 goals around it. The reason I like this is all the other goals, when they're all interconnected, ultimately it affects the good health and well-being of people. So this is one of the favorite ways of demonstrating how health is central to everything. Now I'll start with the WHO. So when you look at WHO, the parent organization for the World Health Organization is the United Nations. And again, there are several job opportunities even in this area. You don't have to necessarily just work for WHO at one point in your life. You can always consider looking at the United Nations itself, the parent organization. So under that, in the human rights, one of the first things is access to essential medicines, because it's a fundamental element of the right to health. Health can only be attained when essential medicines are available, affordable, and accessible. So that's something that we have to bear in mind. So when we talk of essential medicines, we're not talking of all the medicines on this planet. We're talking of medicines that addresses the morbidity and mortality of that particular place. So it could be at a country level, it could be at a state or a provincial level, it could be at a district level, or it could be at a hospital level, or you can bring it down completely down to a primary healthcare or a sub-center level. So whichever level we are looking at in the healthcare system, the primary, the secondary, or the tertiary, for that particular level, whatever morbidity and mortality we see, whatever diseases we see being treated at that level, and whatever deaths we see because of these diseases, that should guide us to say what are our essential medicines. Now, I have spoken earlier to you about the MDG to the SDG journey, but I would just like to reinforce that, because this is something as healthcare professionals we have to bear in mind. We have to be aware of what is MDG. MDG is Millennium Development Goals, and SDG is what we are following at the moment, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. So where did this journey start for those of us who learn or talk about allopathic medicines? Our first synthetic pharmaceutical was aspirin. It started in 1897. So from 1897, this entire journey has been one roller coaster journey. Because what has happened is 1/3 of all the world's population does not have access to these essential medicines. Again, when I said, like earlier, essential medicine is not all medicines that are available on this planet. Essential means whatever diseases are seen in that particular level of healthcare system, and whatever medicines we need to address those diseases or to manage those diseases, those are the essential medicines. So now we have to look at what is happening with the essential medicines in the SDG. Sorry. So in the SDG indicator 3.B.3 talks about measuring the proportion of health facilities that have a core set of relevant essential medicines available and affordable on a sustainable basis. So that's what it talks about. It means that, for example, if there are lots of diabetic patients in the primary healthcare level that is being serviced, then oral anti-glycemic agents and if insulin is required, they can't run out of stock. Hi, Rini. Is it not shared? Oh God. All along, is it? Because I had clicked share. Please just check. Now it's coming.
Now it is clear, madam. Yeah.
Oh, you should have called me up earlier. Why did you wait for so long? All right, thanks. Now, I'm not seeing it being shared on my screen. That's a problem. But are you seeing it? Hello?
Yeah, madam. It is coming. No.
Hello, Rini? Dr. Mahesh, can you see the screen?
Madam. Yeah, madam. I can see that.
Okay.
Kindly make it full screen. That's all.
Okay.
It is correct. Perfectly it is.
Okay.
Yes, madam. Correct. Go ahead.
Okay. Right. So now we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. So under Sustainable Development Goal 3, because that is the central one for us, because we are in the healthcare system, this central one for us is to do with the good health and well-being. So for this Sustainable Development Goal, the indicator for us is 3.B.3. So this talks about how these essential medicines should be available, affordable, and accessible. And this particular puzzle-like thing that you see here talks about rational selection, affordable prices, sustainable financing, reliable health and supply system. So these are the puzzles, the pieces of the puzzles that have to be addressed so that these medicines don't run out of stock, because we have to be able to choose them correctly based on what is affecting the local population. We have to be able to purchase them at the lowest possible cost, because this is called pooled procurement. So in a pooled procurement, what it does is you don't allow each hospital to go and purchase what it wants. You pool everything together. You bring it all together, and then you buy the bulk amount so that it is possible to negotiate better prices with the pharmaceutical industry. And then there's sustainable financing, because generally what happens in the public sector is that the budget that is available keeps changing, and in that changing budget, the sustainable financing sometimes gets lost. So that is what needs to happen. And then the reliable health and the supply systems. Okay. So okay, now what we are doing is we're looking at, because of what is happening at the moment, the COVID-19 implications, what are the things that we are impacting badly? And because of those bad impacts, why do we need to look at how we make access to essential medicines possible? And then we need to look at how this COVID-19 has an implication. So if we look at what is happening to our tuberculosis program, what is happening to our child health, maternal health, HIV, immunization, all these programs that are critical to keep things going in the health sector are all being affected negatively. Now, because of that negative effect, the healthcare disruptions means the reverse, it is reversing decades of improvements, because over the years, we have had all this getting to the state where it is. And now, because of COVID, all our healthcare professionals, whether it is the ASHA worker, whether it is the doctor in the primary healthcare center, whether it is the secondary or the tertiary healthcare centers, everyone is and everything is revolving around COVID. If that happens and continues to happen the way it is happening at the moment, all our healthcare programs are going to struggle very badly. So what will happen is other communicable diseases will start becoming a problem, because there will be a big spike in these communicable diseases. On top of it, non-communicable diseases will also become a problem. What will happen here is, because of inconsistent monitoring of the patients, patients who were hypertensive, who were diabetic, who were being monitored, and who were able to manage. Now what is going to happen is, because the healthcare system is functioning only for COVID, we will have uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled hypertension, etc., and monitoring not taking place. So these are the things we should be very critically aware of, and make sure that we will not be looking at a situation where what we have achieved up to this point of time is now going to get reversed. And the last point on that slide talks about how less than half of the global population is covered by the essential health services. So when this happens, the problem is, you don't, first of all, only half the global population is covered by essential health services. And then on top of it, we have COVID. And then on top of it, we have all the national programs coming to a standstill. So all this is putting an unprecedented negative effect on our healthcare systems. And this is something that we should be very aware of, because what we are doing at the moment with our band-aid response to COVID means we are letting the problem to accumulate in every other sector in the health system, whether it is years of not employing sufficient people in the public health sector, and years of not employing well-trained and competent people in the public sector. Whatever fault lines we have at the moment in any part of the world, all the fault lines are being exposed by COVID. I think that's what COVID is doing. So whether you look at it in terms of, whether you're looking at it in terms of fault lines in the health system, whether you're looking at it in terms of fault lines in the way our society functions, whatever mistakes we have done, this disease is putting a mirror in front of our faces and shining the torch on our mistakes. And this is a good time for us to take stock of where we have been going wrong consistently and start fixing them one at a time, because the same band-aid effect is not going to work any further. It is not going to help us any further. So this is one thing. Now moving on, access to medicines and health products. So this is in the WHO building in Geneva, a place where I invested 3 months of my life in 2008. From May, I was there for 3 months. And this is the hall that I had to walk through to get to my office in Geneva. And this is one of the um, very nostalgic photographs whenever I see it on WHO webpage. Now, what I would like you to be aware of is these kind of organizations, these kind of jobs, these kind of parallel opportunities exist. So please be aware of what are these parallel opportunities. So this is Access to Medicines program in WHO, which is, I worked in that particular program, Rational Use of Medicines and Access to Medicines program, for 3 months on a particular topic. And I'll talk to you more about it in this presentation. Now, this is to do with what happened with the Lancet Commission. Lancet Commission came about with an accountability framework on essential medicines policy. The reason I'm bringing all of this to the discussion is to show that there is a lot happening in this area. So if this topic catches the attention of some of you, pursue it with interest and with dedication, because you have a long way to go, but you have an excellent journey to cover. It's one of the most fascinating areas to be associated with, and one of the most rewarding areas to be associated with when you look at population health. Because at the moment in pharmacy practice, you focus on patient health. So like I keep saying, when you're ready to go into population health, think of these things. So this is about the Lancet Commission. And what they have done is there are 24 core indicators, 12 complementary indicators, and a further 9 indicators to look at how the national regulatory agencies are performing. Because unless at a national level, unless the regulatory agencies take a strong leadership role in these kind of things, it will not move in the public sector, because the private sector is not going to look at access to medicines. They are looking at capitalizing and commercializing everything. So for them, it is to do with, if you can afford the treatment, come and get the treatment. It has nothing to do with are medicines available, affordable, accessible? Are medicines being used rationally? Are we using our antibiotics rationally? At this point, we have reached where we almost are getting ready to say, we couldn't care. It's a system. We are new in the system. We have to toe the line, and we just keep towing the line. So that's that way of thinking, that normalization of the problems has to be broken during the COVID times. This is an excellent opportunity to stop the status quo ways of doing things. This is an excellent opportunity to say, we need to fix the system. We need to change the system. So how do we do it? By going and looking at some of these things. So that public sector, if that improves, if our 60% of the population's health is looked after, then take a look at what's going to happen to the productivity of the country. It will definitely increase. If you look at what happened in Europe, the reason those laws came about hundreds of years ago is because they realized that if you keep people healthy, especially the working class people healthy, then obviously your productivity increases. You have a stronger, a fit, and the minute people are physically fit, mentally they are even more fit. But if they are dealing with illnesses, then there is no way the productivity of a country or of a family can be kept moving. So health is central to everything. And health does not mean disease management. That is something as pharmacy professionals, as pharmacy practice professionals, you have to start redefining. Health is not disease management. Health is beyond disease management. It has to start with diseases. It has to start with managing the diseases, but it does not stop there. It has to progress beyond that. The other organization that I would have mentioned earlier would be the Access to Medicine Foundation. Now, again, an excellent organization which is based in Amsterdam. And they do a lot of work which not only talks about how they are measuring the performance of pharmaceutical companies. Instead of telling the pharmaceutical companies, you guys are the villains, you just make money from the problem, what they do is, well, let us look at all the good things that you're doing. So now they have started measuring the good things, especially with respect to access to medicines, that these the top 20 pharmaceutical companies have been doing. By measuring that, what they're doing is they're putting a positive spin. So what happens is each company tries to do better so that they are somewhere in that list of the top 20. And also by doing that, if the giants are getting better in this game, then obviously the guys who are following the giants will also get better at this game. So that is the positive pressure they're doing. The other thing that is very important, if AMR, antimicrobial stewardship, is of interest to you, do consider, I mean, this is again a very fascinating journey to undertake in your career. So there are several organizations that are looking at antimicrobial resistance, one of them being the Access to Medicines Foundation. They have come up with a benchmark to show how is the AMR related issue being addressed. They also have the Access to Vaccines Index. And now with COVID, this has taken up a predominant space because vaccines are where we are heading with this. Now let's take a look at what is happening with the companies. 5 companies are developing most priority R&D. Now that is not good. It's not a very pleasing thing to look at. Among all the pharmaceutical companies that we have on this planet, if only 5 of them, GSK, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Novartis, and Sanofi, are carrying out 63% of the most urgently needed R&D projects, then it really does not speak of the kind of urgency that we need. Because we're talking about 63% of the most urgently needed R&D projects. So it's not like we don't know what we want. We know it. It's not like we are not pushing the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies are being pushed to look at these kind of stats because they are being evaluated on these kind of things. But the problem is they're able to get away. Why are they able to get away? Because accountability is always an issue in the private sector. They are there for business. They're not there for accountability. And that is the reason why the national regulatory agencies have a key role. So if you remember what I just said to you in about 1 or 2 slides back, where I spoke to you about the Lancet Commission on essential medicines, where they spoke about what are the kind of indicators to measure the way the national regulatory agencies are functioning, especially in developing countries. This is why you need it. The regulatory agencies of a country have to push the pharmaceutical companies of that country to say, if these are our problems, then we need medicines for these conditions. We can't just sit there and wait for the medicine to come by some pharmaceutical company. That's no way of working. If we can work the way we are working for COVID, what was wrong with us for the last 100 years that we did not work in a synchronized manner like this? Even though there is the same stiff competition, there's a lot more synergy in the way we are doing things at the moment. So these are lessons to be learned. Now, something else that is very disheartening is the industry's overwhelming focus on 5 of the 45 priority diseases targets what is reflected by the international donor priorities. Now, we know that globally there are 45 priority diseases. So it's not like we don't know. But the target is only on 5 of them. Why is that? Because the international donors are prioritizing on only those 5. So that is what we need to change. We need to change the way this game is being played. And I will never forget one of my heartless critiques in my career, who I had to sustain for 14 years. This person once told me, if you don't know the rules of the game, you cannot play the game. And I think that is a sentence I have never forgotten from the day I heard it from this person. So you have to understand the rules of this game. If you don't know the rule book, if you're not bothered to look at what are the rules of this game, then you cannot play this game. You cannot play it effectively. Even if it means you just want to look at your own career and nothing else. Even if you don't want to be selfless, that is okay. For your own career-related selfish reasons, understand the rules of this game. There are 45 priority diseases, but only 5 of those gets attention of the pharmaceutical industry in terms of medicines required for them. Right. Now let's take a look at the non-communicable diseases. If you look at what is happening with these pharmaceutical industries, the Access to Medicines Foundation has played a very clever game with the clever people. And that's the way you play a game. Instead of telling the top 20 pharmaceutical companies, you guys are really bad, you don't focus on priority diseases, you just make your money. Well, all of that is more or less true. There's nothing wrong in those statements. At the same time, we also have to bear in mind that if these 20 guys, the top 20 guys, are not given the carrots and only shown the stick for what wrongs they do, that's not the way you play the game. So, what this Access to Medicines Foundation did was they looked at priorities. They looked at how are these pharmaceutical companies looking at the general access to medicine management? How are they looking at the market influence? How are they looking at their own research and development? Just excuse me. How are they looking at the pricing, manufacturing, and distribution? The patents, the capacity building in developing countries, and the product donations. In which countries are they donating these products? So based on that, they are evaluating these pharmaceutical companies. And that's how that ranking comes about, which I've shown you on the right-hand side. And I've also given you the link here. So, sorry. So you can go and take a look at it. So the links are available here. Now let's take a look at a pipeline. In the pipeline, 6.8% of the projects target the neglected tropical diseases. So if you look at what are all the projects that the pharmaceutical company portfolios are looking at, there are 1,314 projects. Of that, the communicable diseases gets only 277, whereas the non-communicable diseases are getting 945. I really wish you had the ability to unmute responsibly and talk. Something that reminds me is the reason power gets taken away from us is because when we are not understanding that responsibilities are the other side of the privilege coin, this is what happens. I really wish you could unmute in turns and be responsible and respond to me rather than have this monologue, which is not giving that space for a dialogue. So there are 1,314 projects, but 945 of those are for non-communicable diseases, whereas only 277 are for the communicable diseases. Now, I would have liked to ask you why. Why are pharmaceutical companies focusing on NCDs rather than communicable diseases? Well, I have to answer it now because you can't unmute yourselves. The reason is very simple. If it is a communicable disease, once the patient takes the medicine, depending on the disease, if it is tuberculosis, the treatment is between 6 to 9 months. If it is any other kind of an infection, possibly for a week. But at the end of it, the patient is not a patient anymore. The patient is cured. But in case of non-communicable diseases, when a pharmaceutical company is investing about 15 years and $500 million and all the salary on that, what happens there is they have a lifetime warranty working for that. As long as the patient is alive, if the patient is hypertensive, they will take the medicines for hypertension. As long as the patient is alive, if the patient is diabetic or has cancer, they will be taking those medications. But the same rule does not apply for tuberculosis. The same rule does not apply for the neglected tropical diseases such as visceral leishmaniasis. Because when the patient is cured, the patient is cured. So there is no profits that can be obtained from that person. So that is where these things start taking a turn. And take a look at this. Maternal and neonatal health conditions, there are just 9 projects running on that. So this shows very clearly that non-communicable diseases have caught the attention of pharmaceutical companies because of the ongoing repercussions that it has in terms of the profits generated. Next comes the communicable diseases. Next comes the neglected tropical diseases, and then the maternal and neonatal health systems, health conditions. Now here is the next organization. Now this is a very interesting organization which played a key role for the antiretroviral program. And this key role was very useful for countries like South Africa, because when the antiretroviral medicines were being sold at almost 10,000 US dollars per patient per year, and when a country like South Africa decided to buy those medications, the pharmaceutical companies were very happy because 10,000 US dollars per patient per year is massive amount of money when you're going to look at the country which at the moment is running the largest antiretroviral program on this planet. So in order to reduce that and make it affordable, organizations such as the Medicines Patent Pool found creative ways in order to reduce the prices of the medicines. So what they did was they went for voluntary licensing and patent pooling. So they said that pharmaceutical companies have to receive sufficient returns for the money that they have invested in producing these new medicines that we need. They should not be running under loss, and we should not be asking only charity from them all the time. They have to make their profits, because only when they make their profits will they be in a comfortable position to invest part of that into new medicines. So the voluntary licensing and patent pooling became the way forward, because all this came about with the Doha Declaration. In one of the sessions where I will talk to you about the intellectual property rights, I will be giving you the example of how 41 pharmaceutical companies took the Ministry of Health in South Africa to court, because they said that when the Ministry of Health in South Africa decided to buy the generic antiretroviral medicines from Cipla in India, they said, no, you can't do this because Cipla is selling it at a throwaway price. And the reason they can make that medicine is because at that point of time, India was following the process patent and not the product patent. So as long as another manufacturer within a given span of time of about 7 years can produce the same molecule but with a different procedure, the process patent was allowed in India legally. But then the WTO took over after that, the World Trade Organization. That's also part of the UN bodies. So the WTO said that process patents cannot be followed in countries. It has to be product patent only, which means if a particular molecule is invented in any country on this planet and it gets a patent, then it has to be respected for the next 20 years. And TRIPS, which is the trade related intellectual property rights, then pulled it forward to TRIPS Plus. In TRIPS Plus, what happened was the data exclusivity issues started. They said that after 20 years of the patent that was enjoyed by the company which had the patent for the medicine, the new manufacturers, the generic manufacturers, can still not make the medicine without generating their own data and without getting the approval from the national regulatory agencies. So this data exclusivity became the problem. So it took the pharmaceutical companies another 5 years to generate the data, which meant effectively for 25 years, the patent does not expire. So these were all the things that were going on during the antiretroviral medicine drama. Now, this particular group played a key role in understanding what are the TRIPS flexibilities, what are the flexibilities that have been written into the document, which until that point of time was benefiting only the developed countries. They said that all countries should have same access, because this is about access to medicines. So the same TRIPS flexibilities of patent pooling and voluntary licensing should be applicable for antiretroviral medicines. So that's how they changed the rules of the game. They were the game changers. And it's very nice to look at how they managed to do it. So these are some interesting organizations you could consider working for at some point in your career. The next organization that I have a lot of respect for is the UAEM. Now, this is the Universities Allied for Essential Medicines. So if you look at it, they have a university report card campaign. And in one of the sessions, I will talk to you exclusively about what is this UAEM and how have they focused on the public good. And now what they're doing is the same organization is looking at free the vaccine campaign. So they are now focusing on the COVID vaccine, because once the vaccine comes out, there are several health system issues. Who will be the first set of people who will receive the vaccines? How will we make these billions of doses available? How are we going to make it available when the virus is mutating? So you can't have one vaccine made in one place which will work for all the countries, because it's now based on the mutating virus. So there are a whole lot of debates happening, and these are important debates for you to be aware of. Another organization you could consider is the Health Action International. Again, an extremely important organization in terms of how they have managed to bend the rules in the rule book, where access to medicine was not the primary priority, whereas these people pushed for access to medicine. And this particular group, Health Action International, they have 4 regional associations which are based in Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America / Caribbean, and Africa. And they work through those 4 regional associations. Now coming to India, we have the Access to Medicines groups in India, and this is the web link for them. And another group I would like you to be aware of is the World Health Assembly, is what is conducted by the World Health Organization. So as a parallel to that, people came up with the People's Health Assembly. Because in the year 2000, when Alma-Ata Declaration was not met and Health for All was not met, this was a group that started meeting in Bangladesh in December 2000. And since then, there have been a big movement all over the world, especially in developing countries. And in India, you have a lot of activities that are done by People's Health Movement. So at least access their websites, be curious to find out what are they doing, what are some of their famous projects, and why is it important to either join them or be a part of what they do, etc. Another group is the Geneva Network. They are also into the intellectual property rights for progress. Now, this is to do with the National Essential Medicines List. So our Essential Medicines List was updated way back 5 years ago in 2015. It has 376 medicines. Now, this is something that is really not on, because this is a concept that started in 1977 in WHO in Geneva. And generally, Sri Lanka gets a lot of credit for this concept. But the country that initiated this concept is Tanzania. In 1970, one of the African countries started with this concept of essential medicines. And what WHO has done is, since 1977, they have been active in this. Every 2 years, they update their essential medicines list. So that essential medicines list is for a global level, and then we can take a look at it and see how it can help us guide our processes. But though we know that every 2 years we have to update our essential medicines list, our essential medicines list was last updated 5 years ago. So this is something that is absolutely not on. We have to pay attention to these kind of things at a governmental level. Now, this is the first WHO Essential Medicines list in 1977, which had 208 medicines. And the next committee meeting will be in 2021, where the 23rd World Expert Committee on the Selection and Use of Essential Medicines will be meeting in Geneva. Now, at the moment for COVID, what they have done is the 2 diagnostic tests for emergency have been approved. There are other agencies you could consider when you look at access to medicines, if that is an area of interest for you for your future career. So one of them is the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. Though their initial focus is AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, a lot of things that they do in these 3 conditions, the generic aspects can be applied across. The next one is the Medicine Sans Frontier. Now, this is a group that looks at different aspects, and Medicine Sans Frontier is now having an access to medicines program, which is led by a pharmacist. So this is something that is very important to be aware of. Then we have the USAID, we have Management Sciences for Health, and we have the, like I said, the Access Campaign in India from the MSF. Now, all these organizations are looking for different ways to monitor how access to medicines is being promoted by the national regulatory agencies of each developing country. Now, this is to do with the UN Secretary General's high-level panel on access to medicines report. Now, this is a report that came about, and the final report is available here. And this is all to do with the Doha Declaration that I spoke to you earlier about. Something very important, and I was able to be a part of, is this panel, the high-level panel, had one of their meetings in Johannesburg in South Africa while I was still at Rhodes University as a professor. And I had been invited by this group, which is part of the WHO. And yeah, so I had the opportunity to also bring in my inputs into this particular high-level panel. And in that, I had spoken about the Access to Medicines Foundation, as well as the MPP, the medicines where they were looking at the patenting, the pool patenting. So those were the two organizations that I spoke about. Okay. Now, there comes a time where you think everything is finished, and that is just the beginning. And I have experienced this. In 1999, when I was trained in the WHO program, so this is the photograph from that program. And I told you two key people who later became the director of the WHO Essential Medicines Program, Dr. Hans Hogerzeil. And this is Dr. Richard Lang, who retired recently from Boston University, but worked for WHO for 10 years as an officer in the Access to Medicines Program. And the person I worked with in that program was Dr. Kathy Holloway. So for 3 months when I worked on this, it was really an important learning space for me as well, because on the last day, this is the photograph from the last day in WHO, where I bought loads of things for us to eat during the tea time. This is Dr. Kathy Holloway. Something that always pleases me when I look at this photograph is how a mentor sits down so the mentee is visible completely in that photograph. These are small gestures of humble people who make very effective leaders. Leaders does not mean there has to be a sense of pride. There has to be a sense of arrogance. Pride we all need to have, but arrogance does not make us good leaders. Making the team look insignificant does not make us good leaders. So leadership is a completely different set of skills that as healthcare professionals, we also have to pick up in our career. Now, Dr. Kathy Holloway led that particular program, and I worked with her for 3 months. Of the countries where she came and used that document that I worked on for field testing and gathering the data, Karnataka happened to be one of them. And all this was happening in the year 2013. So something that I worked on in 2008, and I thought, well, that was maybe a once-off. In 2013, Kathy Holloway chose Karnataka to be one of the states of the 2 states in India where she implemented data collection for the document I had brought in, which was to look at rapid assessment. And in 2017, when I returned to India, least aware about the fact that she had done this for Karnataka, and I started writing proposals. One of the first things I came across was this document on the internet. And I thought, this is how life comes in full circles. And we should never, ever take any incident in our professional or personal life lightly. The reason is you never know when its good effects comes back and protects you, and comes back and supports you, comes back and nurtures you to take on with the next level of your career. So just be completely aware of these kind of things that happens in life. So now this is one of my most important documents in the area of antimicrobial resistance, in the area of rational use of medicines, for which I do a lot of training for healthcare professionals on a voluntary basis. Now we also have something called as the Delhi Declaration. So Delhi Declaration is about improving access to essential medicines in Southeast Asia region. And it talks about what are the different things we should be doing. And this came about in 2018 because we need these things to be pushed forward. So this is a think tank group, the Brookings Institution India Center. They also have this document on medicines in India: accessibility, affordability, and quality. This is the kind of work that is being done in India, where they're talking and published. So this is where they're talking about availability and access to essential medicines in public health facilities in Chhattisgarh in India. Now this is our Karnataka's one. It is our Karnataka State Drug Logistics and Warehousing Society. Now what they have done is they cater to 2,924 institutions. They have 26 warehouses in Karnataka, and they are updating their list of medicines. So it was either in 2017 or 2018 when they had one of their meetings, and I was a part of that meeting in Karnataka after I had returned to India, where we looked at what are the essential medicines we need to reduce so that there is space for better pooled procurement. So as always, this is all about get inspired, stay inspired, but don't stop at being you being inspired. It is also about start inspiring. It's about each of us have a candle in our hand, and our job is not just to light our own candle and remain inspired, motivated, learn better, do better things during a crisis, because what we do during a crisis will determine what happens to us and to our careers after the crisis. So crisis can't be the point where we quit the game and stand still and then look at, okay, what do we do now after the crisis? So don't wait for COVID to go away. It's not going to go away in a mad rush. It is here. We have to learn to live with what we have at this point in our lives. So let us start inspiring others. So it's a journey. It's a journey of I want to do it. I can't do it. I want to do it. How do I do it? I'll try to do it. I can do it. And finally, it comes to I will do it. So I think that's why Obama chose the will part of it. We can. Yes, we can. So stay inspired, because a goal should scare you a little, but excite you a lot. Because fear only means that we freeze in our head and heart. And this is not the time to freeze. Human resilience should not take a beating during a crisis. We will see ourselves out of this phase as well. As much as it is a difficult phase, it does not mean it's an impossible phase, because we don't have an alternative. We don't have anywhere to run to. We have messed up our planet and we need to clean up our planet. But at the moment, we are dumping more because all the PPEs that healthcare professionals have to use, all the single-use plastics that we are using, whether it is gloves, whether it is face masks, we have to be more cautious, because where is it going to go? And we don't want the next crisis to happen because we are again mindless. So let us remain mindful, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to comments. I will definitely not say question time.
Rahul, please take over. Rahul, are you there?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Please take over the questions or comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody is having question?
Comments.
Comments.
Yeah. Anything that came to your mind as important, anything that inspired you, learn to use your voice, because the minute we say questions, you don't have to freeze. You don't have to question a presentation or a presenter if that is so unnerving. What we can do is we can say what was of interest. What will you take away from it? So who are the volunteers for that now?
Anybody?
There are 77. So
Please raise your hand if you are having any comment.
Can I just say something while you're thinking through? I had a reason why I used that cover page of the book where it says, get inspired, stay inspired, and start inspiring. When somebody invests their time and comes and gives you a session and shares certain things that may have caught your attention, it is only courteous, it's only normal and natural as social beings that we are to have an exchange. Um I think we have to start looking at it as a professional responsibility where we say, all right, this caught my attention. I like this point. That should not be so tough because nobody is evaluating you when you do that.
Students come out with the appreciation remark at least.
You don't have to say thank you and all that, or it was
Yeah.
very good. That's not
Yeah.
that's not expected. But what caught your attention? I think
Yeah,
that
that's
would
right.
leave me inspired. You know, you have to reciprocate relationships. That's part of being a professional. Reciprocate what you receive. You can't just go away as a silent spectator. And Dr. Mahesh and Dr. Rahul, maybe a suggestion from next week. If at least 2 or 3 people are chosen within the system to say those are the 3 people who will have that feedback, and then they all get their turn so that they know that their turn is coming. So I think that way we don't have to push them and they don't have to feel
You
pushed.
mean for questions or comments, madam?
For the comments, yeah. I think we should
Yeah,
stop
okay.
this question session because I think the minute we say question, there is a frozen brain, and we don't
Yes,
want the
yes,
frozen
yes,
brain.
yes, yes,
We
yes.
want alert, active, young generation. And you guys are so sharp in everything else. But why do you freeze when it is time to interact with somebody?
Sometimes when you say your experience from abroad, students may set back sometimes in their thoughts of expression. That's what I think. Let us let us.
I don't stop being a normal human just because I worked in another country for 14 years. I'm still as normal as all of us here. I was born on the same
Yeah.
planet and I will die on the same planet. So I'm not going to fly away somewhere and die in space. So come on, guys.
Yeah.
Going
Dear
to some other country should not be made to look like
yes.
out of this world. It was not out of this world. I didn't become an astronaut. I was
So,
very much on this planet. I
dear
just went to the
students,
mother continent.
dear students, see, this is like this, when madam is presenting her slides, somewhere you will be liking the areas of your work in some of the which she has done it, or some of the areas where you have a kind of doubt to pursue further, or any comments which you could not able to understand but you want to ask. Such kind of things you have to always observe when you're listening to the presenter. You have to observe the gap where you have a doubt. So madam is kind enough to expect the comments from that angle, not to make you a kind of spectator always. So the people who goes to abroad and come back, they always expect that kind of interaction so that they confirm that you understand better. So that is a way they usually have that experience when they go abroad and work for so many years and come back. Okay, so not to have any fear and not to have anything else in the mind, but be open enough to ask like this. Okay, so anybody now time will start now. Otherwise, everybody will be, as madam tells, we will hold you every week. One or two people, three people
Yeah,
have
I
to ask
think
the
that is
question
better.
mandatorily.
I think that is better.
Uh,
I mean,
Instead,
just say what caught your attention. I mean,
yes.
what was good, what you thought may be a career choice at some point in your career. It's about reciprocation. That's about it.
Anybody, please open up.
Is this the normal response, or this is just one of those
No,
unusual days?
madam, we have to ask the question, madam. Afra MS is there now. So can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself and ask, express your opinion? Afra MS, Akash Day.
They are quickly leaving the meeting. From 77, we have dropped to 63.
Ask.
I think we should not embarrass ourselves anymore.
Antonita, unmute yourself and ask anything or express your opinion. Or maybe Rahul, can they unmute?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that option is there, I guess. So please unmute.
Okay, Sandeep, can you?
Bhumika, Chaitali.
That's okay, Dr. Mahesh. I think you put in a lot of effort.
That's okay,
I
madam.
think,
No
you know,
problem.
for next time, I think that will be better, because if
Yeah. At
because
least
if you nominate 2 or 3 people, and then, you know, how
they'll
do
be
we
at
make
least
it
represent.
easy? Yeah, how do we make it easy is what I wanted to ask you.
What we can do, madam. My suggestion is that we will identify 3 or 4 students. Let them get the feedback from other students on behalf of other students. They can
Yes.
even ask that opinion or
Yes.
whatever the doubts they have. In that way, maybe students feel comfortable after
Yes.
some time.
Yes.
So
I
that
think that's one thing. And also for me, what is of interest is, you know, whether something that they had not heard, what were the new things that they heard,
yes.
or
Make in
what
mind,
caught their, that's all. It's nothing, you know, no rocket science involved there.
Correct.
So it's about simplifying it in order to learn to be confident in expressing themselves.
Yes.
So that's about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And I have sent the next set of 3 topics to Dr. Raman Tag.
Okay, sir. Okay, madam.
So I look forward to 3:30 next week.
Not next week, preferably, madam, because they have got a
No, that's fine. You can decide. You can decide.
October 1st is tentatively fixed.
That's fine. So you can
we'll
let
go
me
ahead.
know the dates.
Yeah. Sure.
All right.
We'll be.
All right. Thank you so much. You can let me know the dates.
Yeah, madam.
And that will work.
Sure. We'll be in touch with you.
Sure.
Definitely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.